John of the Eye Patch, Chapter 38. With the Queen Anne's Revenge safely disappearing behind the horizon, John helped Anne to the great cabin. She had trouble on the ladder leading down and would have fallen off it if John had not been there to catch her. "The world just won't stop spinning after all," Anne said. John helped her to her feet in the great cabin. "I'll get you some water." He was desperately excited to try the medallion on the chest, but Anne needed help, and John could spare a minute to run to the ship's cistern for a mug of fresh water. They'd only been out of port for 2 days, and the water still tasted fresh and had none of the rankness of a longer voyage. He brought the water to Anne, who sipped it gratefully. "I think I've heard too many of your stories, John. I'm having dreams of mini caravans and houses with too much grass around them, but not the horrible crawling grass they have here." "Maybe I'll find a way to take you there someday," John said. "Maybe," Anne smiled. John's mom sauntered into the great cabin. John showed her the medallion, and they hurried to the Spanish treasure chest in the back corner of the cabin. His fingers tingled as he held the amber stone over it, over the facade of the chest where it belonged. The medallion clicked right into place. He gave a tug, but the medallion didn't budge from the face of the treasure chest. "It fits!" John sat back with a giddy smile on his face. "This chest, it looks familiar to me," Anne said. "Your dad was the one who broke the medallion off." "I remember," Anne shook her head. "Mom, it's time. Climb in, and we send you home." "No way. Not until I know you're safe too, John." "Just go, Mom. It's what we've worked for. If we don't find the eye patch, this is your time machine to come back and find me." "Excuse me, no. If we don't find the eye patch, this will be your time machine, John." "No!" John stomped his foot. "It doesn't work that way. At least wait until we return to Nassau. Mr. Griffin is there with the eye patch, and then we can both go home." John wasn't sure. He thought he saw a hint of a smile at the corner of his mom's eyes, even though her lips stayed as flat as the horizon. Headwinds slow the Dragon of Plunder, but Blackbird showed his ability to harness the wind was no fluke, and with a series of jibs, I'm not sure, they reached Nassau in the late afternoon. John, his mom, and Anne went ashore. "His house is just this way." Anne led them east through the shanty town to a small stone and wood house roofed with sails. John knocked on the door. His mom pushed past him, opened the door, and went in without a care to privacy or ownership. The vulture-like Mr. Griffin looked up from a small desk in the corner. When sitting, his hunched back made him appear to almost be laying on the desk. His eyes widened as he recognized John and his mom. "It's you," he spat out. "That's right," John's mom said. "You took an eye patch and we want it back." "I don't know what you're talking about." Mr. Griffin sat back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. "It's made of shark skin," John said. "Smells like the sea. You took it from me in Blackbeard's tower." "Not getting any clearer, lad," Mr. Griffin said. John and his mom looked through the 3 cabinets in the single-room house, finding a modest selection of earthenware dishes, 1 change of clothes, and in the last cabinet, a brown hooded cloak. "What are you doing?" Mr. Griffin lurched out of his chair. "Sit down." John's mom pushed him back into the seat. "Those are my things." "This is the cloak you were wearing when you took my eye patch." John started searching the cloak for the hidden pockets. "Get out of my stuff, you thief!" Mr. Griffin's fingers looked like talons as they gripped the arms of his chair. John found several hidden pockets, but each of them were empty, except for a couple with Spanish doubloons. He dropped the coins back in the pocket, and he let the cloak fall back onto its hanger. John looked around the room frantically. There was no place else to hide it unless he had it on his body. Could he be telling the truth? Did somebody else take the eye patch? The treasure chest would only hold 1 person. Anne stepped between John and the cloak. "You missed the secret pouch in the collar." Her fingers unbuttoned a hidden pocket, and she pulled out the black sharkskin eye patch, and she handed it to John. He pulled it on, the eye patch settling on his face like a well-worn friend. He didn't even mind losing half his vision. John, his mom, and Anne returned to the Dragon of Plunder. Anne held John's hand as they walked through the town. I liked you better when I could see both your eyes. I liked you better when I could see both of your eyes, she said. I can't lose this again, Anne. John smiled at her and tugged the eye patch, keeping it tight to his face. It's my only way home. The great room of the Dragon of Plunder was somber as Blackbird, Mr. Owens, and Rusty Jones waited for John and the rest. The treasure chest sat in the middle of the room. Where here goes everything. John's mom climbed into the treasure chest and closed the lid. Nothing happened. No! John knelt in front of the treasure chest. It has to work. He touched the medallion. It rotated to the right, clicking once. Then John felt heat across the chest, and he stepped back instinctively, and the treasure chest grew thin and vanished from the ship, leaving a faint outline of the chest in the sand. John stood on giddy legs. His mom was safe at home. He looked around at the assembled crew. Blackbird, Mr. Owens, Rusty Jones, Anne. I could not have done this without all of you. It was an honor to sail with a wizard. Blackbird held his tri-cornered hat against his chest, and he bowed. Scallywag nae more. Old salt ye be yonder forth. Mr. Owens held a hand out to shake for John. You pour the best glass of milk I ever had, Rusty Jones said in his baritone blasting voice. Thank you for making me feel happy, even if it was just for a few days. Anne took both of John's hands in hers, and she smiled up at him, her freckled cheeks pinching at her nose. What are you going to do when Blackbeard gets here? He asked. Well, I haven't really thought that far ahead, Blackbird said. Really haven't thought. Doesn't think, the bird said. Quiet, you, and he threw his hat at the bird. Bring a spring upon him we will, Mr. Owen said, and Anne laughed. Leave father to me. He has a habit of coming around to my way of thinking. I am the one who convinced him to give up killing. Well, I guess this is goodbye, all. John waved awkwardly. He pulled off the eye patch. Rocking decks of the ship were replaced by the stable carpeted floor underfoot. John looked around the hotel room. His dad stared at him with an open mouth. No, detective. He just came back. You can cancel the missing persons report. His dad dropped the phone receiver on its cradle and staggered to his feet. John, his dad said, it was like seeing a ghost. When I got this, his dad held up the letter John had written from the cell in Blackbeard's tower. I thought for sure you were playing a trick on me because I didn't listen to you, but seeing you just appear like this... John couldn't stand to hear another word. Guilt hit him so hard in the gut. He had been lying to his dad for so long. To have it come out all at once now turned to John's stomach, and he nearly was sick on the carpet. The only thing he could do now was run straight to his dad's arms. They hugged. John winced as his dad grazed his arm. What's wrong? His dad peeled away John's makeshift bandage, revealing swollen red and black skin. I got shot, Dad, but it wasn't too bad. He tried to smile. I'll get my bag. Don't worry. We'll get this taken care of. His dad's strong arms circled him, hugging him tighter, pushing the guilt and pain and worry from John, filling him with the comfort and love and security. John's dad's cell phone started to ring.